אבינו מלכנו, חוננו בנינו. אבינו מלכנו, חוננו בנינו, כי אין בנו מעשים. עשה עמנו צדקה וחסד, עשה עמנו צדקה וחסד והושיענו.
We did recently help safely evacuate from Gaza a young Yazidi woman so she could be reunited with her family in Iraq. The circumstances of this case really hard to describe. This is a now young woman who 10 years ago, when she was an 11-year-old girl, was kidnapped by ISIS in Iraq, sold, and forced to marry a Hamas fighter in Gaza, moved to Gaza against her will. The recent death of her captor in Gaza allowed her to escape. And we were contacted by the Iraqi government, who was made aware of the fact that she escaped, that she was alive, and that she wanted to come home to her family. And the government of Iraq asked us to do whatever we could to get her out of Gaza and get her home. So over the past few weeks, we worked with a number of our partners in the region to get her out of Gaza, to get her safely home, obviously with the government of Israel, and with other partners as well, to get her out of Gaza, get her home to her family, and I can say now that she is safely home with her family in Iraq.
بس بحمل بابي بس الشارع البكتر ما لا خذ يا ماما لا خذ خذ شويه او كيلو الحاكم او اكثر يا بابا وده كان مغمض وده اتمت قضيه هذا كتاب تشتري به ها كتاب ده
Do you remember this incident of 24 years ago when two Israeli in a truck drivers took a wrong turn, ended up in Ramallah, where they were grabbed by a crazy Arab mob, brought to a house. Into the house, they were stabbed and stabbed. The Arabs took their two cell phones and used those phones to telephone their wives and told the wives, listen carefully, we're slaughtering your husband. Slaughtered the husbands and threw the 2 dead bodies out of a window. Then took the dead bodies, attached them to trucks, and drove them around Ramallah to the town center where the dead bodies were set on fire. Do you remember? And an Arab in a building who had killed them, one of the Arabs who had killed them, to let the mob downstairs know that the 2 Jews had been slaughtered, stuck out his 2 hands, and his hands were full with blood. Do you remember? Do you remember the Arab innocent civilians?
Today, 2 Israeli soldiers were reporting to their base in Bethel. One was about to become a father, the other one was a father of 3 young children, Vadim Gerzhitz and Yossi Abrahami. Tragically, they didn't know their way so well and made a mistake. It turned out to be the mistake of their life. They reached the entrance of Ramallah. In Ramallah, they were pulled out from their car and brought to the police station in town. They were taken to the 2nd floor. Very quickly, the rumor was spread that there are 2 Israeli soldiers arrested in the Palestinian police station. The mob began to arrive. They demanded the policemen to bring them down, the 2 soldiers. They wanted to lynch them. Not only the police did not stop the angry crowd, they decided to carry out the lynching themselves. They beat and stabbed the Israeli soldiers with metal poles and knives, and then they threw the body of one of the soldiers to the angry crowd. The mob tore the body to shreds and lit it on fire. 20 years later, we are pursuing justice for the families. We received an unprecedented decision finding the Palestine Authority responsible for this horrible lynching. They will have to pay. Our message is clear. There is a price for Jewish blood, and nobody can kill a Jew and go without pay.
He was killed on Rosh Hashanah. Israel killed him. Those are 2 separate clips. On the one hand, I forgot her name wrong. Something like Tina Nitzana. She was announcing Shurat Hadin, her organization, has just gotten a major judgment against the PA. And subsequently, unrelated, Israel killed the guy finally. The guy had been released. Israel had caught him. And then Hamas had done a previous kidnapping. And Israel had released this guy in order to get back previous hostages, which is why Israel just doesn't want to release any more of these animals ever again. And one of them who was released was Sinwar, who became the head of the Hamas, still hiding in tunnels if he's alive. And this guy became active in Hamas and has killed far, far more people than the one Israeli who was released in that prisoner exchange. Israel got him this weekend.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres today posted this comment. Let me read it for you. This is what he said. I condemn the broadening of the Middle East conflict with escalation after escalation. This must stop. We absolutely need a ceasefire. Prime Minister, what's your response to him?
Shame on him. This guy is a clown. He's a clown because he can to quit.
The Israel Defense Forces has launched a defensive operation against the Hezbollah terror organization by conducting precise, intelligence-based strikes on hundreds of Hezbollah targets. Our goal is to thwart imminent attacks planned by Hezbollah, who intended to fire the very weapons that we destroyed at Israeli homes. Our goal is to make sure that Israeli families can safely and securely return to their homes. Where was Hezbollah hiding these weapons? Inside Lebanese homes. For the last 20 years, Hezbollah built its terror network within population centers in Lebanon, primarily throughout southern Lebanon, an area that they turned almost entirely into a launch pad to attack Israel. According to Israeli intelligence, it is estimated that in every 2 to 3 homes in southern Lebanon, there's a Hezbollah terror asset hidden inside. The IDF has released concrete intelligence documenting Hezbollah's human shield strategy. Here are a few examples of hundreds of targets. A long-range cruise missile with a 1,000-kilogram warhead that Hezbollah planned to launch at Israel, hidden in the attic of a Lebanese home. This is real footage from one such home. The DR-3 cruise missile with a warhead of up to 300 kilograms that Hezbollah intended to use to kill Israelis, hidden inside a residential building in Lebanon. This is real footage from one such building. You can see the secondary explosions, proving that we did target and indeed hit weapons inside those homes. On October 8th, Hezbollah started attacking Israel. They chose to join the war that Hamas started on October 7th with their brutal massacre. Since October 8th, 60,000 Israeli people evacuated their homes, and Hezbollah has indiscriminately fired over 9,000 rockets at Israeli homes, causing death and destruction. One of these attacks killed 12 kids playing soccer on a Saturday night in Majd al-Shams. After almost a year of Hezbollah rockets, missiles, suicide drones, and ground attacks. After almost a year of Israel calling and seeking a diplomatic solution. After almost a year of restraint from Israel, our defensive operation against Hezbollah sends a clear message. Enough is enough. Prior to our strikes on the Hezbollah weapons that they intended to launch at Israeli homes, we called on the Lebanese people with weapons in their homes to move out of danger, move out of harm's way. We conveyed this message in Arabic on TV and social media. We sent text messages and made phone calls. Israel is basically telegraphing its punches to its enemy so that it can minimize civilian harm. Hezbollah, however, seeks to maximize harm to the Lebanese civilians that it uses as human shields. Hezbollah called on Lebanese civilians to stay put, don't evacuate. While Hezbollah targets civilians, Israel is solely striking Hezbollah terrorist and military targets. We do this in full compliance with international law. Israel is a democratic state under threat from a terror organization whose stated goal is to destroy Israel. Hezbollah has openly declared that it has a plan to carry out its own October the 7th massacre on Israel's northern border, but on an even larger scale. They call this plan Conquer the Galilee. For years, Hezbollah has been planning to do in northern Israel what Hamas did in southern Israel on October 7th. Invade Israel, infiltrate civilian communities, and massacre innocent civilians. When the world came together and said that October the 7th can never happen again, the defensive action that Israel has been taking against Hezbollah fulfills that promise. Hezbollah planned to launch their October the 7th attack from the villages that they've been building their forces in for the last 2 decades. These villages, which are just across the border from Israel, have become bases of attacks. Just like this village, Kfar Kile, which is located 350 meters from the Israeli community of Matula. Here you can see a Hezbollah weapons warehouse that they intentionally placed 100 meters from this school here and 125 meters from this mosque here. And this Lebanese village, Aita Ashab, which is approximately a kilometer away from the border with Israel. Hezbollah intentionally built 2 weapons warehouses in the heart of the civilian population here. 100 meters away, a mosque. 150 meters away, a medical clinic. 200 meters away, a Lebanese school. For the past 2 decades, Hezbollah has consistently and relentlessly deepened its presence in southern Lebanon, building outposts along the Blue Line, hiding massive amounts of arms in the villages of southern Lebanon in clear violation of UN Security Council Resolution 1701. We have a duty to make sure that Israeli civilians can return safely and securely back to their homes. We have a duty to make sure that October the 7th never happens again on any one of our borders.
Again, the Radwan force is the force that was going to be coming in from South Lebanon and perpetrating an even worse massacre than October 7th. That's their weapons. They're going to go through this tunnel right into Israel and surprise Israel, who presumably would not even expect or know that there's an entrance point. That they would just be popping out of the tunnels all of a sudden, right in the middle of it, like a kibbutz or some kind of Israeli neighborhood. You see the amount of trouble they went through, how long these tunnels are. Fortified with electric wires, air conditioning, water bottles. Lighting, refrigerator, stocked so they can be there for a while. It just goes on and on. It's like the New York City subway system. Okay. This is some little kid, and I found him. I don't know, there's nothing particular about this kid, but he's got a 2-minute message for Nasrallah. Today is the 355th day of the war. Precisely 354 days ago, Nasrallah began his attack on the 8th of October, day after the October 7th he joined in. And he began the Third Lebanese War. Israel's had 2 previous wars in Lebanon. Nasrallah has been targeting Haifa, Tel Aviv, the Sharon area. And there's citizens in all these different places the kid is mentioning, up north and all kinds of northern regions. He's been shooting at them with his rockets and displaced them from their homes. So Nasrallah, I have a message for you. Allow me to speak, okay? I'm talking, please. I have news for you. You began a war against us on October 8th. And did you have, what was your involvement? Why did you have any connection with this? This was between Israel and Gaza. Did this have anything to do with you? Why did you get involved and make everything so violent? Nasrallah? Believe me,
נגיע עוד מעט אליך במנהרות,
we're gonna get you soon.
בבונקר. עוד מעט חיל האוויר
We're gonna get you in the tunnels, in the bunkers, or our Air Force. We're gonna get you.
יגיע אליך לפשיש אותך. תתכונן.
You better get ready. It's not gonna be very useful.
هيدا الخليوي اللي بإيدنا، اللي بإيدكم، أنا ما في بإيدي خليوي. هيدا الخليوي اللي بإيدكم يا إخوان ويا أخوات، هذا جهاز تنصت. كتار بيجي بيقول لك لما بيطلع الإسرائيلي بيضرب هدف، العملاء والعملاء ومحيط العملاء وفتشوا عن العملاء. مش محتاج لعملاء أصلا، والله مش محتاج عملاء، يعني بحلف لكم يمين. ما هو جهاز التنصت بجيبتك وبجيبة ابنك وبنتك وزوجتك وبالبيت وبالشغل وبالسيارة وبالطريق. وهيدا الخليوي بيسمعك شو عم تحكي، وبيسحب لك كل شيء حاطه بقلب الخليوي، حكي ورسائل وصور، وبيحدد لك مكانك بالضبط وبأي أوضة، وده راكب بالسيارة قاعد قدام والله ورا وعلى اليمين والله على الشمال. بده أكتر من هيك الإسرائيلي، وأنا عم أقدم له إياه. لذلك نحن طلبنا من إخواننا، هلا بدي أرجع أطلب بالقرى الحدودية، بالقرى الأمامية، إذا فينا بكل الجنوب بهاي المرحلة، خصوصا المقاتلين المقاومين هن وعائلاتهم، يستغنوا عن الخليوي. عطلوا يا خيي، ادفنوا، حطوا صندوق حديد وقفل عليه، معلش جمعة جمعتين شهر 2، الله أعلم هاي القصة قد ايه بتطول، من أجل سلامة وأمن وحفظ دماء وكرامات الناس. هيدا العميل، بتقلي وين العميل؟ بقول لك هيدا العميل، الخليوي اللي بإيدك واللي بإيد زوجتك وبإيد أولادك، هيدا الخليوي هو العميل، وهو عميل قاتل. أغلب الحالات اللي عم بتصير هي نتيجة الخليوي. نحن عم نعمل إجراءات داخلية، بس صاير قد الناس خلص، يعني صار الخليوي مثل الأكسجين تبع الواحد، ما بيقدر يعيش بلاه، يتنفس بلاه. وبيعرف هذا جهاز تنصت، وصوتك عم يوصل، وصوت زوجتك عم يوصل، شو عم بيصير عندك بالبيت عم يوصل، وبالشغل عم يوصل، ومع ذلك بضل واحد ممسك بالخليوي. هذا أمر غير جائز من الناحية الشرعية، بالحد الأدنى في مرحلة القتال والمعركة والتهديد وتعريض أمن وحياة الآخرين للقتل.
And so, of course, they moved over to pagers and walkie-talkies.
אתה נראה כמו סוס יאור, יש לך שכל של ציפור, עדיף שתישאר בבור כי בקרוב אתה תמות. אתה פשוט אידיוט גמור עם שיגעון גדלות חמור, אתה שטן או בקיצור אתה חלאת האנושות. גם אם תזרוק עלינו טילים או תאיים על הגלילים, החברים שלך מסוריה ואיראן. גם אם תפיל כאן עוד קטיושות, תדע שאין כאן שום ירושות, ביחד נתגבר על הצרה. יאללה יא נסראללה, נדפוק אותך אינשאללה, נגביר אותך לאללה עם כל החיזבאללה. יאללה יא נסראללה, תלך מפה יא זבאללה, נגזר כבר מלמעלה שזה הסוף שלך. אתה עלוב, אתה קטן, אתה מזכיר אורנגוטן, יש לך קינים על הזקן ובקרוב תעוף מכאן. אתה ג'וק מת, אתה בואש, אתה מתחיל להתייאש, צהל אותך רק מבקש כדי לשרוף אותך באש. גם אם תזרוק עלינו טילים או תאיים על הגלילים, החברים שלך מסוריה ואיראן. גם אם תפיל כאן עוד קטיושות, תדע שאין כאן שום ירושות, ביחד נתגבר על הצרה. יאללה יא נסראללה, נדפוק אותך אינשאללה, נחזיר אותך לאללה עם כל החיזבאללה. יאללה יא נסראללה, תלך מפה יא זבאללה, נגזר כבר מלמעלה, שזה הסוף שלך. יאללה יא נסראללה, נדפוק אותך אינשאללה, נחזיר אותך לאללה, עם כל החיזבאללה. יאללה יא נסראללה, תלך מפה יא זבאללה, נגזר כבר מלמעלה, שזה הסוף שלך.
That's right, Jose. In just the last 2 hours, we've seen over a dozen large blasts lighting up the sky over this southern neighborhood of Dahia right behind me. Now, with each massive thud, we've seen huge plumes of smoke rising over this residential neighborhood that's a stronghold of the Hezbollah militant group. And the Israeli military had warned residents hours ago to leave the area. But, Jose, these are some of the largest blasts that we've seen in the 2 weeks since we took up this position. And it comes as it's, the latest in Israel's expanded assault against Hezbollah as it attacks and kills its leadership up and down Lebanon. Jose?
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and time.
At least 2 more top terror chiefs were killed in Israeli airstrikes in Lebanon earlier today as a countdown began to a huge strike back against Iran. Hamas field commander Saeed Atala Ali was killed along with his wife and 2 daughters in an air raid on a refugee camp in the northern Lebanese port of Tripoli. And hours later, another strike killed Hamas terror planner Mohammed Hussein al-Lois in the Bekaa Valley. The pair were the latest kingpins taken out as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was set to approve a serious and significant attack on arch-enemy Iran. US sources warned that a major operation to avenge Tuesday's thwarted 181 missile blitz was imminent. And action could even happen on the first anniversary of last year's October the 7th attacks on Monday, as the Middle East is braced for another major escalation of hostilities. The 2 men who died are among dozens of senior figures killed by Israel in recent days after swathes of Hezbollah's ranks were left blinded and maimed by a pager and walkie-talkie blitz. Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah was taken out by a bunker bomb 9 days ago, and his presumed successor was believed to have met a similar fate on Friday. Hashem Sefardine is presumed dead after remaining unreachable since another huge strike blasted his underground bunker south of Lebanese capital Beirut. Israel also attacked targets in Syria, where 1 person was reported killed and 3 hurt in a drone strike. A Hezbollah command post hidden inside a mosque in southern Lebanon was also attacked. Fighting on the ground between Israel's 25-strong invasion force and Hezbollah's Radwan force militia was also raging in southern Lebanon. But Hezbollah was still managing to launch volleys of rockets into northern Israel. Military clashes continued as Israel launched a huge security operation to shield major commemorative events marking the first anniversary of the October the 7th attacks on Monday. A huge ring of steel was being prepared to shield thousands of Israelis preparing to commemorate the first anniversary of the attacks. Moving ceremonies are planned, prompting a huge security operation near kibbutz villages in southern Israel, where 1,200 were slaughtered and 251 kidnapped a year ago. Families will remember their loved ones in heartbreaking commemorations beginning exactly 1 year since the horror began at 6:29 a.m. Nick Parker for The Sun.
Has Israel just decapitated Hezbollah's leadership? In a stunning escalation of the conflict, Israel has struck once again, this time reportedly eliminating Hashem Safadine, the man expected to succeed Hassan Nasrallah, Hezbollah's longtime leader. This comes just days after Nasrallah himself was taken down in an Israeli strike. But as the dust settles, Hezbollah remains silent. No confirmations, no denials. What are they hiding? Is Hezbollah's leadership in shambles? And more importantly, what message is Israel sending to Iran-backed terrorist groups that continue to threaten its borders? Make no mistake, Israel is in the middle of a fight for its very existence. Hezbollah and Hamas, Iran's terror puppets, have waged war on Israel for decades, using Lebanese soil as a launchpad for terror. But in this deadly chess game, Israel has made its move. Nasrallah, a figure of terror, is gone. Safadine, his likely successor, may now be lying in the rubble of Beirut. Hezbollah's leadership is crumbling, and Israel isn't just standing by. It's accelerating their downfall. Israel's latest strike, a surgical military operation, targeted Hashem Safieddine, a founding member of Hezbollah and a man with deep ties to Iran's Ayatollahs. Safieddine wasn't just a cleric in a black turban. He was the architect of Hezbollah's political machine, the one who kept the group's terror networks running while playing politician. His removal could leave Hezbollah leaderless, disoriented, and vulnerable. But why the silence from Hezbollah? Are they scrambling to cover up the cracks within their hierarchy? Is Iran pulling the strings behind the scenes, trying to keep this shattered leadership together? And let's be clear, this isn't just about Hezbollah. Iran is watching, and so is the world. Tehran has long used Hezbollah and Hamas as proxies, tools to destabilize the region, target Israel, and project its power. Iran's fingerprints are all over this conflict. The missiles flying into Israel, the explosives that rip through Tel Aviv streets, they all lead back to Tehran. By eliminating Hezbollah's leadership, Israel is sending a loud and clear message to Iran. We know your game and we will crush it. But the battlefield doesn't end with Safieddine. As Hezbollah reels, Israel is also targeting Hamas, another Iranian pawn in this deadly regional chessboard. Just this week, the Israel Defense Forces took out Zahi Yasser Abdel-Razek Houthi, the head of Hamas operations in the West Bank. This was no random militant. Houthi had been behind several planned attacks on Israeli civilians, including the attempted car bombing in Adaret. With his removal, Israel is dismantling terror networks one by one. Hamas, Hezbollah, they are all on notice. Israel is fighting back, and it's fighting to win. So where does this leave Hezbollah? Where does it leave Iran? With Nasrallah gone and Safieddine potentially dead, Hezbollah's leadership is in disarray. Will Iran step in to prop up what remains? Will Hezbollah be able to regroup? Or is this the beginning of their collapse?
The border between Lebanon and Syria, Iran was sending all of Hezbollah's weapons through Syria into Lebanon.
So this now is a live look, 4:34 in the afternoon, Western Wall, Old City of Jerusalem. At sundown, they'll begin Rosh Hashanah and celebrate the new year in Jewish religious tradition. Coming out of here right now, we'll let you know what's happening over the past 24 hours and give you a sense of the region and what's been transpiring and what really may come next with Keith Kellogg in a moment here. Here's our area of focus that we watched yesterday. This is really Iran's forefront battle. All right, for some time now, you've had the Gaza Strip with Hamas, and then Hezbollah in the north, and then you've got the Houthis down here in Yemen firing as they like, and then that's could be the main target. That's the country of Iran that we watched yesterday afternoon, live in the afternoon. There's a lot of stuff on this screen here. I'll draw your attention to Israeli Air Force in the air, naval defense there in the Eastern Mediterranean. What you see in green right here is what's known as the Iron Dome. It has the ability to fire a system that can take out an incoming rocket or missile to an altitude of 6 miles. Pretty good. What you see here in blue is David Sling, all right? That has the ability to take out a missile or rocket at an altitude of 10 miles. Pretty good. This is the Arrow system here, okay? In yellow, it has the ability to go to 100 miles. And a lot of that was enforced yesterday by the Israeli military and how they used it to defend their country. This is Isfahan. It's a missile complex, been set up for decades. That is the main source as to where the Iranians make their ballistic missiles. Is that the target? Keith Kellogg can answer that. Fox News contributor, retired U.S. Army general. And sir, good morning to you. What does Benjamin Netanyahu do next with regard to Iran, sir?
Yeah, Bill, Dana, thanks for having me. Look, he's got a lot of options, and I think he can go a lot of different directions. He is going to respond, Netanyahu is. You know, I'm always a little bit surprised that senior leaders or national security experts don't listen to people. If you listen to what Netanyahu said when he was at the UN General Assembly, and he talked about Iran. You know, he talked about Moses, and he closed with the book of Samuel. They look at this fight against Iran as a biblical issue, a long-term issue. And when you look at Iran, you have to drop down, then you talk about Hezbollah and the Houthis and Hamas. But their frustration is they're actually fighting this fight by themselves. And you just mentioned that when you showed the map of all the directions that they're fighting. But they're going to respond, and it's very clear they're going to respond. Some of the things you pick up, the tells that I'm picking up is, for example, just the other day they took out 4 air defense sites in Syria. They call it SEAD, S-E-A-D, suppression of enemy air defense. What they're doing is opening up a lane into Iran. So where are they going to go? That's a great question. I think they're going to go hard. And when they go hard, you're looking at the potential for Isfahan, or you're looking at their nuclear sites that they want to go after. Because when you hear what Blinken said about them getting ready for a breakout, the Israelis have said, we're going to have to do this on our own, because the United States has said, well, we want equilibrium, meaning that we want everything to calm down. It's not going to calm down. We should actually reverse that and say, no, we're full score behind them. You know, when you look at the Iron Dome that you just mentioned, those 3 interconnected systems, the fact is that's also a U.S. system, U.S.-built system, U.S. and Israeli-built system, with Israeli IAI helped build that. That's a great system, but it's been very, very effective, and it's given them a lot of latitude, meaning the Israelis, because the Iranians have now failed twice. And I think if the Iranians, and if you look at Khamenei, the supreme leader, is probably going, this may not be such a good deal. But I think the Israelis are going to do something. They're going to do something hard in the very near term.
Okay, sir. A couple of things here that involve us, really. Check a look at the list here. Accelerator nuclear enrichment program, shortening the time to get nukes to perhaps weeks. Hacking the U.S. presidential election, both the Harris and Trump campaigns, victims of that. You got an Iranian plot to assassinate the former president. That's ongoing. That threat is still out there. And then we came upon this. Yeah. This is a picture of the IDF. I want our viewers, okay, this is going over Jerusalem and the Old City yesterday, which the Israelis were like, you know, you're trying to take us out. Well, I mean, this is a spot that's sacred to Jews and Muslims and Christians alike. Go to call for number 3. Here we go. So this was an IDF picture, okay, with a question mark over the face of Sinwar.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
there
well,
it is in the
it's-
upper right-hand corner, sir. Hang on one moment. So we
Yeah.
do not know about his fate in Gaza.
Correct.
Why would with the Israelis being so particular about their own secret?
I'm not sure how clear it is on your screen, but like every single guy, with one or two exceptions, has an X on his face. They've all been wiped out, the entire leadership.
Why would this get out?
Well, I think they're just sending a message. Basically, you know, Sinwar made the comment that he's willing to do some type of peace talks as long as the Israelis can guarantee his life. The Israelis are not going to do that. Sinwar is really the last of the leaders when you think about it, because they've taken out the number one. Sinwar was the one who replaced the number one. When you look at Hanei after they took him out, and then you look at Nasrallah being taken out, you look at Shukar being taken out with Hezbollah, they've kind of gone down the list. And he's the last one. When you look at the leadership out there, there's no leadership. There's no leadership in Hamas anymore. There's no leadership in Hezbollah anymore. In fact, when you look at it, you're kind of saying, well, who's running Lebanon? And the only one running Lebanon, and they've got a Prime Minister, Makati, but they don't even have a president there. So they've kind of gone down the list and taken these people out, and they've kind of reset the battlefield. And the group, the organization, the leader that's still standing is Netanyahu in Israel. And again, I keep going back to it, Bill. This is when we have an opportunity to stand fully behind Israel, because I think what will happen, that gives us a gap. It creates a gap for us to leverage in the future some type of peace deal into the future with the Palestinians, with the Israelis, helping and using the Saudis as well. But we haven't taken advantage of that at all. Yeah. We just kind of keep saying the same thing.
Yeah, General, I mean, what a shame it would be if peace broke out. I mean, the world would change. Keith Kellogg, thank you. We'll speak later in the week, okay? Thank you, sir.
I have a message. I have a message for President Macron. Today, Israel is defending itself on 7 fronts against the enemies of civilization. We're fighting in Gaza against Hamas, those savages who murdered, raped, beheaded, and burned our people on October 7th. We're fighting in Lebanon against Hezbollah, the most heavily armed terror organization in the world, which was planning an even greater massacre than October 7th on our northern border, and that has rocketed Israeli towns and cities for nearly a year. We're fighting against the Houthis in Yemen and the Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria that together have launched hundreds of drones and missile attacks against Israel. We're fighting against terrorists in Judea and Samaria who are trying to murder civilians in the heart of our cities. And we're fighting against Iran, which last week fired over 200 ballistic missiles directly at Israel, and which stands behind the 7-front war against Israel. As Israel fights the forces of barbarism led by Iran, all civilized countries should be standing firmly by Israel's side. Yet President Macron and some other Western leaders are now calling for an arms embargo against Israel. Shame on them. Is Iran imposing an arms embargo on Hezbollah, on the Houthis, on Hamas, and on its other proxies? Of course not. The axis of terror stands together. But countries who supposedly oppose this terror axis call for an arms embargo on Israel. What a disgrace. Well, let me tell you this. Israel will win with or without their support. But their shame will continue long after the war is won. For in defending ourselves against this barbarism, Israel is defending civilizations against those who seek to impose a dark age of fanaticism on all of us. Rest assured, Israel will fight until the battle is won, for our sake and for the sake of the peace and security of the entire world. I have a message.
And this is just to let you
I
know.
have a message for President Macron.
Just to let you know, it made it into France also, so he got the message. I'm not going to play the whole thing again, but...
Today, Israel is defending itself on 7 fronts against the enemies of civilization. We're fighting in Gaza against Hamas, those savages who murdered, raped, beheaded, and burned our people on October 7th. We're fighting in Lebanon against Hezbollah.
And Netanyahu has been very busy this week sending messages. A message to the people of Iran that whatever's going to happen there, it's not meant against the civilians. We're not trying to hurt you. We're trying to deal with the people who are governing you, and a message to the Lebanese as well. He sent out several messages this week.
I have a message for the people of Lebanon. Israel's war is not with you. It's with Hezbollah. For too long, Hezbollah has been using you as human shields. It placed rockets in your living rooms and missiles in your garage. Those rockets and missiles are aimed directly at our cities, directly at our citizens. To defend our people against Hezbollah strikes, we must take out those weapons. Now, starting this morning, the IDF has warned you to get out of harm's way. I urge you, take this warning seriously. Don't let Hezbollah endanger your lives and the lives of your loved ones. Don't let Hezbollah endanger Lebanon. Please, get out of harm's way now. Once our operation is finished, you can come back safely to your homes. I speak a lot about the leaders of Iran. Yet
I want to emphasize, by the way, I've lived in Israel for a few years, and we get each other countries' television. We got, where we were living, we got Syria and we got Jordan television. Syria television was really lousy, as was Jordan. Lebanon happened to have a Christian station that showed reruns of Star Trek and the A-Team. So that was our favorite station. But we get each other's stations. So when he's making a statement like that, it's reaching Lebanon. And if someone doesn't understand English, they're able to figure, most people out there understand English. And anyway, they talk about to each other and they know what's going on. Everyone knows what's going on. When their houses get bombed, they've all been warned.
At this pivotal moment, I want to address you, the people of Iran. I want to do so directly, without filters, without middlemen. Every day, you see a regime that subjugates you make fiery speeches about defending Lebanon, defending Gaza. Yet every day, that regime plunges our region deeper into darkness and deeper into war. Every day, their puppets are eliminated. Ask Muhammad Def. Ask Nasrallah. There is nowhere in the Middle East Israel cannot reach. There is nowhere we will not go to protect our people and protect our country. With every passing moment, the regime is bringing you, the noble Persian people, closer to the abyss. The vast majority of Iranians know their regime doesn't care a whit about them. If it did care, if it cared about you, it would stop wasting billions of dollars on futile wars across the Middle East. It would start improving your lives. Imagine if all the vast money the regime wasted on nuclear weapons and foreign wars were invested in your children's education and improving your health care, in building your nation's infrastructure, water, sewage, all the other things that you need. Imagine that. But you know one simple thing. Iran's tyrants don't care about your future, but you do. When Iran is finally free, and that moment will come a lot sooner than people think, everything will be different. Our two ancient peoples, the Jewish people and the Persian people, will finally be at peace. Our two countries, Israel and Iran, will be at peace. When that day comes, the terror network that the regime built in 5 continents will be bankrupt, dismantled. Iran will thrive as never before. Global investment, massive tourism, brilliant technological innovation based on the tremendous talents that exist inside Iran. Doesn't that sound better than endless poverty, repression, and war? From Qom to Isfahan, from Shiraz to Tabriz, there are tens of millions of good and decent people with thousands of years of history behind them and a brilliant future ahead of them. Don't let a small group of fanatic theocrats crush your hopes and your dreams. You deserve better. Your children deserve better. The entire world deserves better. I know you don't support the rapists and murderers of Hamas and Hezbollah, but your leaders do. You deserve more. The people of Iran should know Israel stands with you. May we together know a future of prosperity and peace. טוב ושנה טובה לכם, אזרחי ישראל. לפני חודש הבטחתי שנשנה את מאזן הכוחות בצפון.
It'll clear up after a moment.
וכך אנו עושים מאז. במשך 11 החודשים שקדמו לכך,
During the course of the 11 months,
התמקדנו בחזית אחת, מיגור הכוח הצבאי הרצחני של חמאס אחרי הטבח הנורא שהוא ביצע בנו ב7 באוקטובר והשבת כל חטופינו. מהם השבנו הביתה 154.
He's talking about that we've already freed 154 of the hostages, and we've changed the balance of power in the Middle East, and we're now going after the Iranian, it's his declaration, we're going after the Iranian regime next.
באותם חודשים, תושבי צפון הארץ שאותם פינינו כדי למנוע טבח דומה בגבול הלבנון, אותם תושבים ספגו מתקפות בלתי פסקות.
This has been nonstop for the citizens in northern Israel. They've been absorbing these attacks nonstop.
טילים, רקטות, כטב"מים, פצמ"רים.
Missiles, rockets.
אף שהגבנו להתקפות הללו בעוצמה, לא היה די בכך כדי להחזיר את הביטחון בצפון, לא היה די בכך כדי להחזיר אותם הביתה.
We still haven't been able, with the first way we've been fighting back, to get people back home and to bring peace to the area. So we're going to go to the next step.
התחייבנו להחזיר אותם הביתה.
We've undertaken as an obligation, we're going to bring everybody back home to northern Israel safely.
לחיים פתוחים ומלאים בערים, במושבים, בקיבוצים.
To have fully peaceful and complete normal lives in the moshavs, in the kibbutzes, kibbutzim, in the cities.
שלאורך גבול הלבנון. לפני כחודש, לקראת סיום השמדת גדודי החמאס בעזה, התחלנו במימוש ההבטחה שנתן.
So about 1 month ago, as we basically wiped out the main forces and power sources in Hamas in Gaza, we've begun actualizing the pledge that we made to take care of the Lebanon northern area.
נתתי לתושבי הצפון. חיסלנו את נסראללה ואת צמרת חיזבאללה.
We've wiped out, eliminated Nasrallah and the leadership, the upper command of Hezbollah.
חיסלנו את מפקדי כוח רדואן שתכננו לפלוש לגליל.
We've wiped out, eliminated the leadership of the Radwan force that was planning to ambush, come in, an incursion into northern Israel, the Galilee, and make another October 7th.
בצע באזרחינו טבח גדול יותר, נורא יותר, מזה של ה7 באוקטובר. השמדנו חלק גדול ממערך הטילים והרקטות.
We've wiped out a tremendous amount of the rockets and missiles that they've been holding.
שחיזבאללה בנה במשך שנים. ובימים אלה, חיילינו הגיבורים משמידים את מערך המנהרות, מנהרות הטרור שחיזבאללה הכין בסתר.
And our heroic soldiers now are in the process likewise of wiping out the tunnels, the terror tunnels that Hezbollah has built secretly over the years.
בצמוד לגבולנו. אף שעדיין לא השלמנו את הסרת האיום, באופן ברור שינינו את מהלך המלחמה ואת...
Even though we're not completely done with this effort, we've clearly made a major change in the balance of what's going on in this war.
מאזן המלחמה, ועוד ידנו נטויה. אתם זוכרים שנסראללה נהג ללגלג עלינו. הוא קרא לנו קורא עכביש.
Remember how Nasrallah used to insult us and make fun of us.
הוא, ולא רק הוא, העולם כולו, גילו את גידי הברזל של מדינת ישראל. מדינה חזקה עם צבא חזק נורא.
Well, now he knows, not anymore, and the rest of the world, about Israel is strong and ready to fight with a strong army.
עז ומוסרי. מדינה שנחושה להגן על עצמה מול...
A nation that is determined to defend herself against
כל איום.
everything.
זה כולל גם את האיום מאיראן, שעומדת מאחורי כל ההתקפות עלינו. מעזה, מלבנון, מתימן, מעיראק, מסוריה.
We're ready to fight Iranian regime and all their proxies, Gaza, Lebanon, Yemen, Iraq, Syria.
וכמובן, מאיראן עצמה.
And obviously Iran.
איראן כבר פעמיים שיגרה על שטחנו ועל ערינו מאות טילים. בהתקפת טילים בליסטיים.
Twice Iran now has sent payloads of like hundreds of missiles, including ballistic missiles at us.
מהגדולה בהיסטוריה.
Is the largest attack of missiles any country has ever faced in history.
אף מדינה בעולם לא הייתה מקבלת התקפה כזאת על עריה.
There's not a single country in the world that would put up with this.
ואזרחיה, וגם לא מדינת ישראל.
And neither will we.
לישראל החובה והזכות להגן על עצמה ולהגיב על התקפות אלה.
We have the obligation, Israel, and the merit to defend ourselves and to respond to these attacks.
וכך נעשה.
And we shall do so.
אזרחי ישראל, בפרוס עלינו השנה החדשה, איננו שוכחים, ואני לא שוכח, את 101 חטופינו בעזה.
Furthermore, as we enter the new year, we must not forget, and I will not forget, the 101 hostages still held in Gaza.
שאנו מחויבים בכל מאודנו להשיבם הביתה.
We have to bring back.
תמיד נזכור את גיבורינו שנפלו בעזה ובלבנון, כולל בימים האחרונים.
We will always remember those of our heroes who have fallen in Gaza and Lebanon, including recent days.
במלחמת התקומה שאין צודקת ממנה.
And this is just an existential war, a war for our existence. There could be nothing more righteous to fight.
יחד נעמוד, יחד נילחם, ובעזרת השם, יחד ננצח.
Together we will stand, together we will fight, and with God's help, together we will win.
Joining us now, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Secretary, good to have you with us. What do you make of what the senator had to say about the fact that the Biden-Harris administration has been full-throated and unequivocal in supporting Israel?
Well, good morning, Shannon. Look, Senator Coons is a nice man, but he's just living in a fantasy world. The most important people who make the determination about whether America is providing enough support, frankly, are the Iranians, Hamas, and Hezbollah. And they have felt free to fire missiles into Israel, kill 1,200 Israelis, continuing to hold Americans hostage. We don't even talk about that anymore. There are still hostages held by the Iranian regime in Gaza today. Instead of talking about a ceasefire, which is what Secretary Austin spoke about, what Secretary Blinken speaks about, we should be saying plain and clear, finish the job. Nasrallah would be alive today if the Biden administration ceasefire had gone into effect. The entire Hezbollah leadership would be alive today if the Israelis had agreed to the ceasefire that Hamas had demanded and that the Iranians had demanded and the United States had supported. Make no mistake about it. We know history. We know the history from 1967. We know the history from 1973. There is only one thing that will protect Israel and make the Middle East more prosperous and peaceful, and that is the demonstration of power and imposing costs on Israel's adversaries.
This last part of our time together today is to get us more in the mood with Yom Kippur coming. We're in our Sertimei Tshuva, 10 days of Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur. Please just open up for a few moments for yourselves, and let's just contemplate. We're in a personal, spiritual moment. Besides all the things going on in the rest of the world, for ourselves, we have to always work on ourselves to be better and to be in connection with God. So we'll take out these next moments for that purpose. Here we go. Let's just take that off the screen.
Avinu Malkeinu, נכנס למקום שנכנס ועומד במקום שעומד.
He refers to the Kohen Gadol, the high Kohen, on Yom Kippur during temple times, during times of the Beit HaMikdash, on the day of Yom Kippur for the service, where he'd come in and he would offer sacrifices, and he would change from white garments to gold garments to white garments. Hundreds of thousands, millions of Jews would be gathered outside the Beit HaMikdash, and he would go out, he would recite a prayer that God should bless the Jewish people and bless the Kohanim, the Kohens, bless the nation, bless his own family. And when he would recite it, the one time of all year, that he would actually pronounce the name of God in a way that no one is ever allowed to pronounce, except that one time in the year at Kohen Gadol. And when people would hear that, they would all prostrate on the ground and say, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto L'Olam Va'ed. They would hear God's name and say, blessed is his name of his kingdom forever and ever. And there would be 2 or 3 rounds of that. He would sprinkle blood according to the halachic requirement on the altar, and he would have a certain number of sprinkling he should do, a total of 1 and then 7, and he would be sure to not get the numbers wrong by counting. At each time he'd sprinkle some blood, he'd say, that's 1, and that's 1 and 1, 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1 and 4. And then he would have one place that he would stand at the paroch, at the curtain, and in the innermost sanctuary, the Kodesh HaKodeshim, and then he would come out, and then he would return to the place that he was, and he would return to the place that he entered. He would return to the place that he stood, and to the place that he was, and then afterwards, after Yom Kippur had ended, the nation would accompany him home to his home with Yom Kippur over, and he would celebrate, and the nation would celebrate their hope for a wonderful year. So that's some of the references. And Ishai Ribo also did some poetic license with some of the wording for the purposes of what he wanted to do with this particular song.
נכנס למקום שנכנס ועומד במקום שעומד לחץ ידיו רגליו טבל עליו ונסתפק בא ממקום שהוא בא והלך למקום שהלך פשט בגדי החול לבש בגדי לבן וכך היה אומר אנא השם כפר לחטאים לעוונות ולפשעים שחטאתי לפניך אני וביתי ואם אדם היה יכול לזכור את הפגמים, את החסרונות, את כל הפשעים, את כל העוונות בטח כך היה מונה אחת, אחת ואחת, אחת ושתיים, אחת ושלוש, אחת וארבע, אחת וחמש ישר היה מתייאש כי לא יכול היה לשאת את המרירות החטא, את הבושה, את הפספוס, את ההפסד. והכהנים והעם העומדים בעזרה כשהיו שומעים את שם השם המפורש יוצא מפי כהן גדול היו קוראים משתחווים ונופלים על פניהם ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד. נסע למקום שפסע פניו לקודש אחוריו נכר. ללא רבב היו שווים פיו ומעשיו. בא ממקום שהוא בא, והלך למקום שהלך. ושט בגדי לבן, לבש בגדי זהב. וכך היה אומר אנא השם, כפר לחטאים לעוונות ולפשעים, שחטאתי לפניך אני וביתי. ואם אדם היה יכול לזכור את החסדים, את הטובות, את כל הרחמים, את כל הישועות, בטח כך היה מונה אחת ואחת, אחת ושתיים, אחת באלף, אלפי אלפים, ורוב ריבי רבבות, ניסים נפלאות שעשית עמנו ימים ולילות. הכהנים והעם העומדים בעזרם, שהיו שומעים את שם השם המפורש יוצא מפי, כהן גדול היו קוראים, משתחווים ונופלים על פניהם. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד. ממקום שיצא ורם ממקום שעומד, פשט בגדי זהב, לבש בגדי עצמו. וכל העם והכהנים היו מלווים אותו לביתו ביום טוב לאוהביו, כי נסלח לכל עדת ישראל. אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שהשם אלוקיו, אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שהשם אלוקיו, לא נמתח בדרי מעלה מעלה כהן, בדרכים היוצאים מטבח היום מעלה כהן, תות הקשת בתוך הענן מעלה כהן, חסר הניתן ובני חזר מעלה כהן, הכהנים והעם העומדים בעזרם, שהיו שומעים את שם השם המפורש יוצא מפי, כהן גדול היו קוראים, משתחווים ונופלים על פניהם. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד.
בטלין ומבוטלין לא שרירין ולא קיימין ננרנה לא ננרי ועשרנה
Yom Kippur is the Holy of Holies of Jewish time, the time when you can almost touch the divine presence, so intense is the atmosphere of the day. And it begins at night with Kol Nidre, the prayer whose haunting music has the power like no other to unlock the gates of the Jewish heart. And yet, did you ever look at the actual words themselves? Never was there a more unusual prayer. In fact, Kol Nidre isn't a prayer at all. It's a formula for undoing vows, releasing us from obligations we didn't really mean to undertake. It's a legal document, one that wouldn't be out of place in a lawyer's office. Inspiring. It isn't. Never was there a greater disconnect, a deeper dissonance between the music and the words. The words are prosaic, the music sublime. So how did it happen? We can't know for sure. The origins of Kol Nidre are lost in the mists of time, but the most plausible suggestion about Kol Nidre, or the words that precede it giving permission for us to pray with abaryanim, transgressors, go back to the Middle Ages, to the times of forced conversion. There were times under Christian and sometimes even under Muslim rule when Jews were faced with the choice, convert or die. Abandon your faith, accept ours, or we'll be forced to kill you to save your soul. And some Jews did convert. They were known in Hebrew as the Anusim, the people who acted under coercive pressure. Non-Jews called them conversos, or the insulting term marranos, meaning swine. It happened in Spain and Portugal in the 15th century, but it happened in Visigoth Spain as early as the 7th century. Yet many of them remained Jews in secret. They kept what they could without risking their lives. And once a year on the holiest of nights, they'd come to the synagogue, ask to be admitted, and they would pray a prayer asking God to hold them innocent of vows they'd made under the threat of death. It was a way of saying, please God, understand that we didn't want to abandon you. We just wanted to live. You who know the heart know this, that Jews we are, Jews we hold ourselves to be, and Jews we will remain. What an extraordinary story that is. Some years ago at a civic service, I was approached by a very aristocratic British politician. He said, I'm so glad you're here. My wife wants to meet you. She's Jewish, you know. Well, he introduced his wife to me, and she told me her story. Her family had been Christian for more than 500 years. They were conversos from Spain. Yet in all that time, they never forgot that they were Jews. And who knows whether one day her children or grandchildren may not find their way back to the synagogue and know more deeply than the rest of us the meaning of Kol Nidre. Which is why what's happening today in the Jewish world is so sad. Today there are no pressures forcing us to give up our faith. To the contrary, we are freer than Jews have ever been. Yet throughout the diaspora, one young Jew in two is deciding not to marry another Jew, create a Jewish home, have Jewish children, and continue the Jewish story. What an irony. Jews survived poverty, but they're failing to survive affluence. They survived oppression, but they're failing to survive freedom. When they had almost nothing to thank God for, they thanked Him. But now, when we have almost everything to thank God for, we forget to thank Him. This year, let's so resolve to live that our children or grandchildren, the next generation of Jews, will want to stay Jewish, live Jewish lives, and continue the Jewish story. How do we do it? By living it ourselves with pride, with joy, with a sense of privilege that we are part of the most remarkable story of any people who have ever lived. The people who taught the world about the one God who created us in love, who forgives us, cares for us, lifts us when we stumble, gives us hope when we stand on the edge of despair, who believes in us more than we believe in ourselves. The God our ancestors never forgot, even when they were forced to pretend to be someone else. Think of that as you listen this year to the music and the words of Kol Nidre, and may God bless you in the coming year. Shana Tova.
Thanks everybody for being here. Have a happy, healthy new year. Gemar Chatima Tova. We'll be meeting, God willing, Tuesday and Thursday, finishing our study of Unatana Tokef and the Avodah. I'm so glad you were here. And that was, of course, Chief Rabbi Lord Sachs. He passed away about a year or two ago. Always was very inspirational. I'll let it go at that. A great man. Thanks very much for being here. And Shana Tova. Gemar Chatima Tova.